Chapter 1. The Mark of Beginnings. In a realm cradled by vast oceans and sprawling continents, bathed in the gentle hues of twilight, the chronicle of our tale unfolds, a tapestry woven from threads of ancient power and human defiance. This world owes its genesis to Hein, a being of unfathomable might who emerged from the primordial void when darkness cloaked the universe in an endless night. With his boundless magic, Hein sculpted the jagged peaks of mountains, the boundless depths of seas, the vaulted canopy of skies, and the verdant sprawl of forests, each a testament to his splendour. Yet his creation birthed monstrous shadows, unintended by products of his grand design, that rose to challenge his dominion. After a struggle spanning ages, Hein vanquished these adversaries with his sorcery, asserting mastery from a throne atop his crafted world, surveying the north, south, and west in harmonious expanse. Only the eastern sea eluded his gaze, shrouded by a towering mountain that stirred his displeasure. Drained by his labours, his power diminished. Hein devised a tool, humanity, self-sufficient and capable of multiplying, tasked with dismantling the obstruction, while he retreated into a deep slumber to restore his strength. Thus, the seeds of this saga were planted, for humanity's tale would reshape the world in ways Hein could not foresee. Generations passed into millennia, and during Hein's repose, humanity fulfilled its charge, carving away the mountain to unveil the eastern sea, yet exceeding its purpose by forging civilizations, cities and towns rising where once only wild stood. Awakening to find his pristine creation altered by their unchecked proliferation, Hein sought to restore balance, culling the sick, the old, and the young with a ruthless hand. This act ignited a rebellion, humanity's unity, a strength born of grief and defiance, forcing Hein into a pact. He split his essence, bestowing half his power upon women who became sorceresses through a process known as embodiment, a legacy of magic passed from one to another, before vanishing into legend, his fate a mystery whispered through the ages, his name enduring as Hein the Magician. On a stormy night in the present era, atop a cliff overlooking the restless waves of the central continent, this ancient history finds its echo. Balam Garden stands resolute, a circular fortress of gleaming steel and glass, its central spire thrusting skyward like a beacon, piercing the clouds with quiet majesty. Encircling its base lie verdant gardens, their manicured paths threading past shimmering fountains that murmur in tranquil cadence, while within, vast halls of polished stone house classrooms, dormitories, and a sprawling training centre alive with the rustle of flora and the growl of caged beasts. A marvel of engineering, it owes its design to the Centra Empire, a civilization that flourished 4,000 years prior, mastering stonemasonry and mechanical arts to erect mobile cities that roamed the globe, their grandeur a testament to human ingenuity born from Hein's gift. That empire's heartland on the southern continent fell to the lunar cry, a cataclysmic deluge of monsters raining from the moon, a phenomenon whispered to stem from Hein's ancient struggles, its cycle tied to the lunatic Pandora, a relic said to summon infernal havoc when perfectly aligned with lunar forces. Now, Balam Garden serves as a paramilitary academy, its day-to-day rhythm a blend of academic study, combat drills, and strategic training, shaping cadets into the Seed, an elite mercenary force contracted across nations to protect and resolve conflicts. Their deeper purpose veiled in shadows of a destiny yet unrevealed. Beneath the tempest's howl, two cadets stand poised on the cliff, their rivalry igniting the chronicle's first spark. Squall Leonhardt, a youth of 17 summers, stands clad in a black leather jacket, its white fur collar glistening with rain, paired with dark pants tailored crisp and military sharp. A silver chain dangling at his hip like a quiet omen. His demeanour is one of stoic reserve, a fortress of silence built around a heart guarded by years of solitude, his dark hair plastered to a face of sharp features, eyes narrowed against the storm with a flicker of guarded intensity. In his grasp gleams a gunblade, a rare weapon-melding sword and firearm, a sleek, balanced design known as the revolver, its blade etched with subtle grooves, its grip housing a trigger that, when pulled, vibrates the steel to amplify each strike, a marvel requiring precision and finesse that very few are capable of. Opposite him strides Cypher Almasy, taller and broader, his matte grey trench coat billowing like a thundercloud, a bold red cross emblazoned on the sleeve, his short blonde hair slicked back with a flourish that mirrors the swagger in his step. His bearing exudes brash arrogance, a tempest of pride and ambition, his voice sharp with defiance as he taunts his rival. He wields the Hyperion, a longer, heavier gunblade, its blade broader and more imposing, its trigger mechanism favouring raw power over subtlety, a reflection of his unrestrained zeal. Childhood adversaries within the garden's disciplined ranks, their sparring quickly erupts into a duel through clashes of steel, rain lashing the rocky outcrop. Cypher strikes first, a burst of fire magic flaring from his hand, flames licking the air as he lunges after the cheap shot, knocking Squall down, his Hyperion slashing downward to carve a jagged scar across Squall's brow, staining the rock ground a dark red. Squall recoils, contemplates the actions of his peer in front of him, then responds with a swift counter-strike, his revolver arcing upward with the intent to mirror the wound on Cypher's face, sparks flaring as his blade scrapes along the ground, and in one fell swoop slices upward, releasing a spray of blood to match Squall's, all whilst the storm rages. The duel ends in a stalemate, their breaths heavy in the cooling air, scars glistening as they part. Shadows against the lightning's flash, their rivalry a prelude to destinies entwined. As dawn breaks, the storm yields to a gentle light filtering through the infirmary of Balaam Garden, its sterile white walls aglow with the soft hum of machinery, a sanctuary tended by the garden doctor, her hands deft as she tends Squall's wound. He stirs upon a cot, the ache of his scar a fresh reminder of the night's fury, when a fleeting vision crosses his sight. A young woman, her brown hair secured with a simple ribbon, clad in a modest blue top and dress with it, sways with her step, her eyes holding a depth of recognition that stirs an unplaceable pang within him, her voice silent yet resonant as she gazes upon him. Before words can form, she vanishes, and Kistis Trepe enters, an instructor of 18 summers whose poised elegance belies her youth. Her blonde hair is gathered in a neat bun, her peach blouse tucked neatly into a long skirt that sways with her measured stride, a whip coiled at her waist, a symbol of her authority and skill, its leather worn from countless lessons. Her demeanour one of quiet confidence, tempered by a subtle warmth. She speaks with a calm authority, informing Squall of the day's import. His seed field exam, the final test to join the elite ranks, requiring proof of combat prowess and compatibility with Guardian forces, mystical entities that enhance strength and magic through junctioning, a technique central to Seed's arsenal, and leads him beyond the garden's gates, past Balam Town, a quaint haven of cobblestone streets and whitewashed homes nestled against azure docks, where fishing boats bob with the tide's gentle rhythm, their nets swaying in the morning breeze. Their path winds to the fire cavern, a volcanic hollow carved into the cliffs near Balam, its entrance framed by jagged stone blackened by heat, the air thick with a scent of sulphur, and the distant rumble of molten rivers coursing beneath. Within, crimson light bathes the cavern's walls, casting eerie shadows across its uneven floor, stalactites dripping with condensation as the heat rises in waves. Quistis guides Squall to face Ifrit, a guardian force summoned as a prerequisite for the exam. A towering beast of flame and sinew, its muscular form wreathed in fire, horns curling like embers, eyes glowing with primal fury, its roar reverberating through the stone as it emerges from a pool of lava. Squall stands resolute, his gunblade steady in his grip, its blade gleaming as he engages the beast, dodging its fiery claws with agile precision, striking with measured blows until Ifrit yields its essence, a surge of power junctioning to his being. Quistis nods, her voice soft yet firm, her whip resting unused at her side, a silent testament to her trust in his ability, deeming him ready for the trial ahead, the seed field exam that will test his mettle in real combat. Shortly after their return, the call to action sounds, and Squall is summoned to the garden's briefing room, its circular table lit by overhead panels casting a cool glow, where Headmaster Sid Kramer awaits, a bespectacled man in a simple sweater vest, his gentle demeanour masking a resolute purpose forged in shadows of the past, his hands clasped behind him as he paces with quiet determination. He assigns Squall to a squad led by Cypher, joined by Zeldinsht, a wiry youth whose red vest clings to a frame brimming with restless energy, his baggy shorts swaying as he shifts on his feet, spiky blonde hair bouncing with each eager gesture, his fists clenched in anticipation, his demeanour a whirlwind of enthusiasm barely contained. Their mission, the siege of Dolet, a coastal dukedom on the western continent, its pastel rooftops and winding streets cradled between towering cliffs and a shimmering harbour, a remnant of Centra's once vast reach, its prominence faded since the Empire's fall, its radio tower, a skeletal structure of rusted metal standing silent, a casualty of global interference whispered to stem from the Sorceress War, a conflict 17 years past when Sorceress Adele sought dominion, opposed by Galbadia until her abrupt vanishing left the world in uneasy peace. This field exam pits the cadets against Galbadia, a militaristic nation now ruling the western continent, its blue-clad soldiers marching to reactivate Dolet's tower for reasons obscured, a move hinting at ambitions beyond mere conquest. The squad departs aboard a sleek vessel, cutting through the waves, its engines humming as it approaches Dolet's golden shores, landing with a jolt as boots sink into sand, the air sharp with salt and gunfire. Galbadian soldiers emerge, their rifles flashing in the midday sun, their disciplined ranks clad in crisp blue uniforms bearing the insignia of Galbadia. A militaristic nation that rose to prominence on the western continent in the wake of the Sorceress War's end 17 years prior. A conflict where sorceress Adele's bid for global dominion was thwarted, leaving power vacuums that Galbadia seized with ruthless ambition. These foes now marched to reactivate Dolot's long-dormant radio tower for purposes obscured, a move hinting at designs beyond mere conquest. Cyphus leads with brash confidence, his trench coat billowing as he charges toward the central square, barking orders with a voice that cuts through the clamour, his Hyperion slashing with unrestrained zeal, felling foes with bursts of fiery magic that crackle in the air. Squall follows, his movements deliberate, the revolver flashing with precision as he weaves through the skirmish, striking with calculated force, his leather jacket creaking with each pivot. Zell's fists dance in a flurry, toppling soldiers with bursts of kinetic energy, his spiky hair bouncing as he darts between targets, a grin flickering despite the chaos. Their task, to secure the square as part of the seed field exam, a trial to prove their worthiness for the elite ranks, unfolds in a storm of steel and shouts, the cobblestones slick with sea spray and blood, the town's pastel facades now scarred by conflict, its quaint shops shuttered against the din. Cypher's impatience drives him beyond the plan, his figure breaking from the squad as he charges toward the communications tower. Its rust-streaked silhouette looming over the square, his voice taunting as he disappears up its winding streets. Squall, spurred by Zell's urgent nudge, they pursue his rival, his boots pounding the cobblestones, weaving past fallen soldiers and shattered crates, the tower's rusted steps creaking under Cypher's weight ahead. He catches up at the tower's base, its skeletal frame humming faintly as Galbadian technicians labour within. Cypher's Hyperion resting on his shoulder as he surveys their work with a smirk, uncovering their intent to repair this dormant beacon, a signal piercing the global interference with a crackle that hums through the air, before turning to Squall with a dismissive scoff, his trench coat swirling as he strides off, abandoning his post entirely, leaving Squall and Zell to face the shifting tide alone. At that moment, Selphie Tilmit arrives, a petite figure in a yellow jumper dress that flares with her hurried steps, her brown bob swaying as she bounds forward across the square, clutching Sid's withdrawal order with a breathless grin that belies the urgency, cutting through the tension like a spark of cheer. Her casual brightness rallies them as the tower's hum crescendos. Galbadia's success marked by a faint static pulse reverberating through the town, the exam's objective slipping from their grasp. Retreat becomes necessity, and as they hasten to the beach, a spider-like war machine pursues, its metal legs thudding against cobblestones, crimson eyes glowing with mechanical menace, its chassis a relic of Centra's ingenuity turned hostile, pistons hissing as it lumbers forward, relentless in its chase. The squad reaches the extraction boat, its hull rocking against the waves, scrambling aboard as the machine closes in, its shadow looming over the shore. Quistis, awaiting them at the vessel's stern, steady despite the urgency, she takes swift command. With a calm born of experience, she grips the boat's mounted turret. A heavy machine gun affixed to the deck, its barrel glinting in the sunlight, and unleashes a barrage of high-caliber rounds, her blonde bun unwavering as she tracks the target. The bullets tear through the machine's armoured hide, sparks flying as its legs buckle, a final salvo shattering its crimson eyes and silencing its hiss with an explosive groan. The wreckage collapses into the surf, waves lapping at its twisted remains as the boat speeds away, slicing through the water back to Barlam, leaving Dollett's cliffs fading into the mist. The mission's outcome a bittersweet triumph, tempered by Cypher's recklessness. Night falls, and Balaam Gardens auditorium glows with anticipation, its high ceilings echoing with Headmaster Sid's measured tones as he stands before the assembled cadets, his voice carrying a weight of pride as he announces the exam's results. Squall, Zell, and Selfie stand out among their peers, their navy uniforms now adorned with gold trim, symbols of their ascension to Seed, a rank earned through valour and discipline, marking them as elite operatives ready to serve the world's needs, their induction a rite celebrated with quiet reverence. Cypher lingers at the edges, denied the honours of Seed rank for his reckless defiance, pride simmering beneath a scowl as he turns away, his boots echoing on the polished floor as he departs the hall. The evening blossoms into festivity, the ballroom transformed, its chandeliers casting crystalline light over swirling cadets, the waltz for the moon weaving a tender melody through the air. Its notes a soft embrace, welcoming the newly minted Seed to their ranks. Squall stands apart, his solitude a quiet fortress, his scarred brow furrowed in thought, until Renoa Hartilly sweeps into his orbit, a vision in a white dress that flows like starlight, its fabric catching the light with each graceful turn, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a silver necklace glinting at her throat like a captured star. With a warm smile that radiates determination and a playful tug, she draws him to the dance floor, her steps lively and assured, her presence a burst of warmth that softens his reserve, guiding his reluctant yet precise movements in a waltz that lingers briefly in the air. Initially squall-oo of sync and unison in the dance, bumping and stepping on toes, finally decides to save himself the embarrassment, much to Renoa's protest his hand in lock, preventing him from leaving. They form a bond and rhythm which turns to a fleeting connection sealed with elegance, before she excuses herself, her voice earnest as she seeks Sid's ear amidst the crowd, her purpose veiled in the night's gentle embrace, leaving Squall to stand once more in quiet solitude, the melody fading into the stillness. Chapter 2. Threads of Duty. As the echoes of the Dollett mission fade into the stillness of Balaam Garden, it now stands as a bastion of discipline of the Seed cadets honing their craft, their purpose veiled in a deeper intent yet to unfold. In the wake of the Seed graduation ball, where chandeliers cast crystalline light over a night of celebration and the festivities fade, Quistis Trep summons Squall to place beyond the training area where students hang and celebrate a ritual for those that have passed through these halls. She leads him through the garden's corridors, their polished stone walls reflecting the soft glow of overhead lights, to the training centre, a verdant labyrinth of dense foliage and shadowed paths, its air thick with the scent of moss and the rustle of unseen creatures, a proving ground where cadets face live threats to sharpen their skills. The pair reach the lookout deck, with its fantastic views of the garden, all its marvel under the night sky. There, amidst the stars and flickering torchlight of the sky, Quistis pauses, her tone steady, yet tinged with rare vulnerability as she confesses her relief from instructor duties, a decision born of unseen pressures within the garden's hierarchy. Squall's response cuts through a humid air with a harsh edge, his expression hardening as he dismisses her plight with cold indifference, his stance rigid and unyielding, showing no trace of concern for her loss, his jacket barely shifting as he turns his gaze away, leaving her words to hang unanswered in the stillness, her whip resting still as she absorbs his rebuff with quiet resignation. Squall feels no need to entertain such emotions and express them to others, nor does he understand how it helps them when they do the same. You can only rely on yourself in this world. It's hard enough to carry your own burden, let alone others. Haswe walks away, the thought crosses Quisitis' mind, and if this outlook of Squall's was the result of her leadership and qualities. Their return to the dormitories is interrupted in the training centre by a sudden rustle, shadows parting to reveal a young woman cornered by a Granaldo, a winged beast of scales and menace, its claws gleaming in the dim light, its guttural snarl echoing through the undergrowth. She stands with brown hair secured by a ribbon, her simple dress and blue top swaying as she stumbles back, her eyes wide with a recognition that stirs no response in Squall or Quistis, who spring into action. Squall's gunblade, the revolver, flashes with precise strikes, carving through the creature's hide, while Quistis's whip cracks with disciplined force, lashing its wings until it collapses in a heap of twitching scales. Before explanations can surface, figures clad in unfamiliar white uniforms emerge from the foliage, their movements swift and silent as they usher the girl away, her voice unheard yet resonant as she glances back, leaving Squall and Quistis amidst the training centre's stillness. The encounter, a riddle etched into the night along with the identity of this woman. The following dawn bathes Ballamtown's cobblestone streets in golden light, its whitewashed homes and azure docks a serene contrast to the garden's steel embrace. Squall, Zell and Selfie gather at the station, their new rank earned in Dollett's trial. Zell shifts restlessly, bouncing with each eager step, while Selfie radiates irrepressible cheer, a splash of brightness against the morning haze. Their first official mission, assigned by Headmaster Sid, the request sends them aboard a train bound for Timber and reconvene with a small resistance faction and provide support as the hired guns they are. An unusual request, filled for such little fee. Sid admits much to the surprise as Squall, who is named squad leader. Timber, city cradled by dense woodlands on the western continent, its wooden homes and winding paths a fragile bastion under Galbadia's iron grip and occupation, a dominion forged in the Sorceress War's aftermath 17 years prior. The train, a relic of centrist transcontinental rails, hums through the countryside, its steel frame cutting a path through emerald forests and under oceans. Discussing their upcoming steps ahead upon their arrival into Timber in their cabin, a strange effect takes place, with the party hit into a sudden spell of a deep slumber, and a vision overtakes them. Laguna Loire emerges, a lanky figure clad in the standard Galbadian soldier uniform, a blue tunic with silver trim, loose trousers tucked into sturdy boots, brown hair tousled over the large shoot pads. He battles monstrous wolves in Timber's blazing woods, the air thick with smoke and the crackle of flames licking the trees, his rudimentary gun blade, a simpler precursor to Squall's revolver, its blade unrefined yet sturdy, swinging with a vigour marked by clumsy enthusiasm, each strike a blend of determination and unpolished flair. Beside him strides Kiros Seagill, lithe and sharp in the same Galbadian blue, dark armour accentuating his lean frame, and long braided hair matching his katana, flashing in lethal arcs that cleave through the beasts with graceful precision. His movements a silent dance of efficiency. Ward Dabak follows, a burly presence that tower over most men, his harpoon gripped with gruff determination, thrusting into the fray with forceful sweeps that scatter the wolves, his stance unyielding as the trio's camaraderie shines through the chaos, a light of mutual reliance amidst the inferno. The scene holds for a breath, the heat and howls vivid, before dissolving, and the trio make their return to nearby Delling City, a sprawling metropolis that stands as the beating heart of Galbadia's dominion, its skyline a jagged silhouette of towering arches and spires that pierce the heavens, their surfaces clad in gleaming metal and glass, reflecting the neon glow of countless signs. Born from the ashes of the Sorceress War's end 17 years prior, when Adele's fall left the western continent ripe for Galbadia's ascent, Delling City thrives as a testament to ambition and excess. Its streets a labyrinth of opulent boulevards lined with grand facades, marble-clad buildings adorned with intricate carvings, their windows aglow with the flickers of luxurious interiors. The air hums with the pulse of life, the distant rumble of Galbadian transports weaving through elevated highways, the murmur of bustling crowds clad in finery, and the faint tang of industrial smoke mingling with the scent of exotic spices wafting from open-air markets nestled beneath the arch's shadows. Neon lights paint the night in hues of crimson, sapphire, and gold, casting an otherworldly sheen over the city's heart, where statues of past rulers loom over plazas paved with polished stone, their stern gazes a silent claim to power. Laguna stands within the opulent lobby of the Galbadia Hotel, its marble floors polished to a gleam, chandeliers casting golden light across plush furnishings, the air alive with the murmur of patrons and the faint hum of distant traffic and soldiers patrolling the outside streets. Still in his Galbadian uniform, his jacket slightly, he navigates the space with an awkward gait, his eyes drawn to a grand piano at the room's heart. There, Julia heartily performs, a vision of elegance in a sleek dark gown that hugs her slender form, her dark hair framing a face of quiet grace, her fingers coaxing a haunting melody from the keys. Eyes on Me, a tune that drifts through the air like a whisper of longing. Laguna approaches, his posture stiffening with nervous resolve as he conveys his admiration, his clumsy charm softened by sincerity. A moment of connection unfolding as Julia responds with a gentle warmth, her music weaving a thread between them. She approaches to sit with Laguna after her performance. Kiros and Ward linger nearby, Kiros's sharp gaze scanning the room with subtle amusement. Ward's broad frame a steady anchor as they observe their companion's faltering advance. Quite the viewing pleasure to match the cold beer they enjoy. The exchange deepens, Laguna's earnestness meeting Julia's poised curiosity, as she invites him into her private room. Their conversation unfolds in her quarters lamplights glow, Laguna conveying a deeper sentiment, his admiration blossoming into a tender confession of feelings stirred by her music and presence, and his desire to travel and write about the world in publications, his posture easing as he gestures with hesitant hands. Julia responds with a warmth that softens her poise, her eyes reflecting a shared vulnerability as she shares her own heart, revealing a dream to craft a song inspired by him, a melody to capture the fleeting connection they have found. The exchange grows deeper, a quiet understanding settling between them as they draw closer in conversation, the room's stillness wrapping them in a cocoon of possibility. Yet the moment fractures as duty intrudes once more, a summons cutting through their shared reverie, Laguna's shoulders slumping with reluctant heaviness, his steps slow as he turns to leave, the door closing softly behind him with a muted click. Julia remains by the window, her silhouette framed against the city's shimmering lights, her presence a quiet echo of what might have been as the vision fades. His steps reluctant as he departs for another mission, the melody lingering in his wake. The scene holds for a breath, the heat and howls vivid, Julia's melody dissolving into the sound of the train, leaving Squall, Zell, and Selfie bewildered, their senses snapping back to reality as they nears Timber, the vision's purpose and shared experience, a mystery they set aside to focus on the mission ahead. Timber emerges from the mist, its verdant canopy sheltering a city of resilience, its streets alive with a murmur of defiance against Galbadia's rule. A yoke tightened over a decade past when the Holy Dolit Empire's collapse left it vulnerable. Its wooden homes and winding paths threaded by rails that whisper of Centra's faded glory. The train slows, its steel hull creaking as it pulls into a modest station, its platform weathered by years of use, the air tinged with the scent of pine and coal smoke. Squall, Zell, and Selfie disembark, their boots thudding on worn planks, and follow a discreet signal, a subtle gesture from a shadowed figure, to board a smaller, unassuming train waiting on a siding track, its faded green exterior blending with the forest's edge. Inside, the carriage is cramped yet functional, its wooden benches scarred from years of resistance, a single lantern swaying overhead, casting flickering light across maps and papers strewn across a narrow table, the air thick with the faint hum of machinery and the rustle of planning. Renoa awaits within, her presence a blend of warmth and resolve, her white dress from the ball replaced by a blue duster over black shorts, her dark hair framing a face alight with purpose, her dog Angelo a brown and white shepherd bounding at her heels with loyal zeal, his fur a soft counterpoint to the carriage's austerity. She rises from a bench, her movements fluid yet determined, and greets the trio with an eager warmth that fills the confined space, her eyes lingering on Squall with a flicker of recognition from their dance at their ball, though his scarred brow remains impassive, his posture rigid as he surveys the scene. Zell responds with a burst of restless energy, his fists clenching as he absorbs the setup, while Selfie's cheer brightens the dim interior, her hands clasped in excitement at the prospect ahead. Renoa reveals her plea at the ball secured Seed's aid, her tone earnest as she outlines a bold plan. Abduct President Vinzadelling, a gaunt figure whose authority cloaks a cunning will, to force Galbadia's withdrawal and occupation from Timber, her hands gesturing animatedly over the maps, tracing routes with a fervour that contrasts sharply with Squall's stoic silence. Timber unfolds before them, its verdant canopy sheltering a city of resilience, its streets alive with the murmur of resistance against Galbadia's rule, when the Holy Dolit Empire's collapse left it vulnerable. Her demeanour shifts to surprise as she conveys her astonishment that Sid Kramer approved their aid, a request born from desperation, repeatedly denied until her bold approach at the seed ball, where she had secured an audience with the headmaster through an unexpected introduction facilitated by Cypher, a name that stirs a subtle tension in Squall's scarred brow, his posture stiffening at the revelation of her past acquaintance with his rival, a connection that catches him off guard given their shared history at Garden. Rinoa presses forward, her tone shifting to curiosity as she inquires about Cypher's presence on the mission, her gaze lingering on Squall with a hint of expectation. Squall meets her question with a cool detachment, his arms crossing as he informs her of Cypher's failure to pass the seed exam, his voice flat with indifference, though a faint shadow of rivalry flickers in his eyes, quickly masked by his stoic reserve. Rinoa absorbs this with a playful tilt of her head, her warmth undimmed as she shifts the moment, teasingly recalling their dance at the ball, her steps guiding his reluctant ones under the chandeliers, suggesting with a flirtatious lilt that such grace might serve a seed well. Squall's response remains minimal, his jacket barely shifting as he holds her gaze with unwavering stoicism, his silence a barrier she meets with persistent charm, her resolve unbroken by his distance. The air settles as Rinoa turns to the mission, her tone growing earnest as she unveils their purpose, to force the nation's withdrawal from Timber, a desperate bid to reclaim its freedom. She lays out an intricate plan, her hands tracing routes across the maps with deft precision, an elaborate train heist to swap Delling's carriage with a dummy mid-transit, a scheme requiring meticulous timing as the train moves through Timber's outskirts. The carriage would be intercepted, guards subdued, and the switch executed under the cover of speed and secrecy, a strategy born of the Owl's ingenuity and the Rail's central legacy. Squall listens, his posture unyielding yet attentive, his mind assessing the logistics with a mercenary's focus, while Zell's energy finds purpose, his steps slowing as he nods in agreement, and Selphie's brightness sharpens into resolve, her eagerness aligning with the plan's audacity. Rinoa concludes with a steady determination, her gaze sweeping the trio, settling on Squall with a quiet plea for trust, the train's hum underscoring the weight of their task as they prepare to proceed, the mission's complexity a thread weaving their fates tighter, the shadow of Cypher's absence lingering faintly in the flickering light. With the plan set, Squall, Zell and Selphie join Rinoa aboard a separate train threading through Timber's outskirts, its steel frame humming as it races parallel to President Delling's luxurious carriage, a gleaming vessel adorned with Galbadia's insignia, slicing through the forest on Centra's ancient rails. Rinoa directs the heist with unwavering focus, her presence steady as she aligns their train alongside the target, the air thick with the roar of engines and the rush of wind between the speeding hulks. The operation hinges on a daring leap. Squall takes the lead, his silhouette poised on the carriage's edge, timing his jump with a calculated grace as he vaults across the narrow gap, the wind whipping past as he lands on the target train's roof. Rinoa next, not one to miss out on the action despite the danger. Zell follows with his usual excitement. And lastly, Selphie's agility shines as she leaps across. Together, they execute the swap, keeping watch for sentry guards as Squall inputs security codes and unhinges the target carriages, eventually replacing Delling's car with a dummy through a tense ballet of cables and synchronized pulls, the train's roofs shuddering as the exchange completes under the cover of speed and shadow. Yet Triumph falters when they board the carriage. In a safe location during transit, it reveals not Delling, but a grotesque doppelganger, its twisted form erupting with dark magic. Met by Squall's precise slashes, Zell's relentless punches, and Selfie's evasive manoeuvres until it collapses, exposing the ruse, leaving Renoa's determination intact, but the mission's success a fleeting mirage as they retreat. The forest's depths swallowing the echoes of their bold endeavour. Delling remains elsewhere, his shadow cast long over Timber's fate, the path ahead for the resistance uncertain. Chapter 3. Shadows of Ambition. In the forested embrace of Timber, where defiance murmurs beneath Galbadia's iron rule, the chronicle shifts to a moment of reckoning. The threads of fate tightening as Squall, Zell and Selfie navigate the aftermath of a failed heist. Renoa, unshaken, gathers Squall, Zell and Selfie within the cramped confines of the Forest Owl's train. A faded green carriage doubling as their base, she shares intelligence gleaned from whispered networks. President Daling has arrived at Timber's TV station, a squat structure of rusted antennae perched amidst the town's heart, its screens flickering with static, a Centra relic now bent to Galbadia's will. The owl's spies, embedded among Timber's downtrodden, uncovered his presence after intercepting coded messages hinting at a broadcast. Its reach enabled by the Dollet Tower's reconfiguration during the seed exam, a task Cypher's brash pursuit had unwittingly confirmed, restoring a signal lost to interference born of a sorceress's ancient machinations. Delling intends to make a grand announcement, addressing the world, a move signalling ambitions beyond Timber's subjugation. Renoa turns to her seed contract and recounts its shaky genesis, and its unusual clause she notes: assist until Timber's liberation or their demise with no replacement of any seed members can be made. She presses the trio on their commitment. A pact Squall meets with a cool indifference, his arms crossed, his scarred brow unyielding as Zell shifts restlessly, and Selfie nods with eager brightness. Undeterred, and now with the commitment of her mercenaries, Renoa unveils a new plan: to seize the TV station's broadcast, wresting its voice from Daling to rally Timber's people. Her fervour a stark contrast to Squall's stoic silence for the newly improvised objective ahead. Renoa leads the way as the station looms ahead as they approach. They pass shuttered shops and boarded windows. Her tone softens with a wistful ache, her hands gesturing to the town's quiet corners as she recalls Timber's past, before Galbadia's iron grip descended over a decade ago, when the holy Dollet Empire's fall left it exposed. She paints a picture of a vibrant haven, its streets alive with merchants hawking old issues from the Timber Maniacs, a publishing company dedicating many magazines to giving world-travelling journalists a voice beneath colourful awnings, children darting through bustling markets, and the air rich with the scent of fresh timber and blooming wildflowers. A community thriving in harmony with the forest, its laughter now silenced by the weight of martial law. A sad reminder of the nostalgia to a lost era as they near their target. The TV station's rusted antennae pierces the tree line, its broadcast chamber aglow with the hum of machinery, technicians scurrying beneath flickering lights to prepare Delling's address. The party stealthily breach the chamber's steel doors, with the aid of locals smuggling them through back doors and secret passages to avoid the Galbardian army, the air sharp with static and tension only matched by the TV stationed waves emitting. To the dismay of the party, they are too late. Delling stands poised, his presence commanding as technicians adjust screens as he is viewed live across the world. His message one of acknowledgement of problems between nations, and with a surprise announcement of his new ambassador, the sorceress. The shocking announcement only bested by the chaos that follows. Cypher Almasy storms in, his grey trench coat billowing, his Hyperion gunblade flashing as he seizes the president, pinning him against the console with a fierce grip and gunblade at his throat. His actions a tempest of defiance, born of his exam's failure and a thirst to prove himself. Quistis emerges from the station's depths, her whip coiled at her waist, her posture taut with urgency as she signals to the timber team for aid, her pursuit of her former charge colliding with his reckless ambition. Squall, Zell, and Selfie hasten forward, their steps echoing on the metal floor. The negotiations fall on deaf ears for Cypher, who is doing this out of the passion for his love for Renoa, unintentionally revealing to Delling who is in front of him. Seed mercs dispatched by Garden, all in view of the live broadcast feed to the world. Retreating out of the camera's eye, a figure of dark splendour intervenes. Idea, clad in a black gown adorned with feathers, a gold headdress framing her regal visage, her presence chilling the air with sorceress power, a descendant of Hind's fractured might. She strides forth with an otherworldly grace, her magic flaring in a dark pulse that envelops Cypher, drawing him to her side with an unspoken command, his trench coat trailing as he vanishes with her, leaving Delling unscathed and the station in disarray. The Seed trio, branded fugitives by this reckless act, flee as the forest owl's base crumbles under Galbardian reprisal, Renoa and Quistis joining their retreat. They find refuge in a timber resident's modest home, the muffled tread of Galbadian patrols echoing beyond the shuttered windows as the group huddles to plan their escape. Renoa, her resolve softened by concern, turns the conversation to Cypher and his safety, her tone laced with a tender care as she reflects on his bold spirit. Zell paces near the door. He weighs Cypher's recklessness with a mix of frustration and grudging respect, while Selfie perches on a stool and nods in thoughtful agreement. Squall remains a pillar of indifference, his scarred face impassive as he dismisses Cypher's plight along with his well-being. His sentiment of shielding feelings to avoid potential pain stark contrast to Renoa's empathy, prompting a visceral reaction from her, one that Squall does not ignore, and for the first time acknowledges another feelings, although fleeting as his cold demeanour returns and quickly shifts to focus on their next move, fleeing to Galbadia Garden, in line with the Seed Code book when in distress. En route, Zell's usual restless energy is subdued, his hands clenching as he reflects on the TV station blunder, his careless mention of Seed during the live broadcast, a slip amidst Cypher's chaos with President Delling, now haunting him with the fear that his words might bring harm to Balam Garden, and many others, his brow creasing with guilt as he wrestles with the weight of his error. Squall responds with his usual cold detachment, unyielding as he brushes off Zell's concern with a dismissive shrug, his indifference a stark wall of frost that chills the air. The awkward silence broken by Renoa, her resolve flaring, her duster swaying as she confronts Squall, her tone sharp with frustration as she challenges his leadership, his lack of empathy for his squad glaring in this moment, her hands gesturing with a mix of care and rebuke. A quiet unease falls of Squall as realization sets in about his lack of leadership and his conflicting approach personally. Before the tension peaks, a fracture in all, as a vision seizes them, leaving only Renoa and Zell standing amongst the hypnotized others. This time, Laguna, Kiros, and Ward stands amidst a central excavation site, its rugged terrain scarred by ancient ruins, beneath a sky heavy with dust, lying deep in dangerous territory without reinforcement. The only way is through the site that is brimming with Esther soldiers in shimmering silver armour. Their efforts to pass through undetected fail as Esther forces emerge from the shadows, their blades and rifles flashing in a sudden ambush. The site's centrepiece, a gargantuan crystal pillar, its jagged facets glinting with an unearthly light, looms as the trio fend off the assault. The skirmish intensifies, dust swirling as they carve a path through the encircling soldiers' weapons, clashing against armour in a desperate surge, until they break free to the site's edge. A sheer cliff face dropping to the churning ocean below, waves crashing against jagged rocks. With no retreat, Laguna leads the leap, his form arcing into the salty air, followed by Kiros's graceful dive and Ward's heavy plunge, their bodies striking the water with a resounding splash. They surface amidst the swells, swimming to a small boat bobbing near the horizon, an Estar craft commandeered in haste, clambering aboard as the vessel cuts through the waves, escaping the cliff's shadow and the distant shouts of their pursuers. The vision fades, returning Zell, Renoa happy to see the others awaken. Quistis confused in her first time sharing a vision with the others. Squall ignoring the inevitable elephant in the room that needs to be dealt with, encouraging the party forward as they near their destination. The enigma of Laguna's past deepening with each fleeting glimpse. End
Thank you. You